Parshas Parta Shofetim, and the Pasha begins, says, Shoftim v'shofetim v'shotrim titein lecha b'chol sharecha. In this week's Parsha, Moses is commanding us and reminding us that as we're going into the land of Israel, we're going to set up ourselves a society. You have to have a system of courts and bailiffs, courts or judges and the police officers to enforce the law. Now, what's interesting is that this verse is written in a very strange kind of way. It says, Shoftim, Shofetim, v'shoftim titen lecha. You shall place them before you in the singular. Now, if you were writing this verse, you would say, Shofetim, v'shoftim titen lachem, in the plural. But that's not what it says. It says it in the singular. And the Chachamim teach us a very deep lesson over here. And that lesson is like this. When you are setting up judges and officers around your gates, you got to do it lecha, for yourself as well. Meaning, what are the gates to a human being? The gates are his eyes, his ears, his or her, mouth. We want to protect those things that come into our ears. We want to protect the things that we see. We want to protect the things that come out. Put a shofet and a shoter. Put a judge. Think before you speak. Have a shoter, have an officer who's going to filter the things that you hear, filter the things that you say. Don't live a life where there is no filter at all. Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha, for yourselves. You have to create a space where you are providing a sense of clarity, a system of development for yourself, so that you don't ruin what it means to be Tselem Elokim, a godly divine individual. Now, it's a question we have to ask ourselves over here. It says Shoftim v'shotrim, right? Why do you need shotrim? We had this year, we had a BLM movement, and part of their platform was defund the police. What do you need police for? Just have really good judges. This is the law is the law, and that's it, you're done. Why do you need police? So the reason why we need police is because all too often our egos get in the way of what a judge may say. He may recommend that, there's some kind of restitution you got to pay, and this person doesn't want to pay it. And now you're stuck. How are you going to enforce it? So the Torah in its infinite wisdom says like this. We understand that there is an ego in the individual. We understand that a person has his own biases that stand in the way. And therefore, in order to go ahead and carry out these judgments that the judges have spent time thinking about internalizing, what do you got to do? You got to have shotrim. You got to have people that are going to enforce the law. My friends, how important is it for us to do the same in our own lives? Let me explain. No, don't hire a personal police task force for yourself. That's not what I mean. The judge is your da'at. The judge is when you make decisions. The judge is when you look through a circumstance that you find yourself in and you're like, wow, the course of action needs to be A, B, and C. But that's not what happens. All too often, you and I will make some sort of a commitment to something, and we'll forget. We won't be able to hold through the commitment that we made. We won't be able to commit to the judgment that we've made. So what is the antidote to that? How do we fix that? We fix that by creating shotrim for ourselves, officers, bailiffs for ourselves, to carry out that which we have concluded for ourselves. So what does that look like? It means having a mentor. It means having a rabbi rebbitzin. It means having a friend. It means having a coach. Tell them, I want to do A, B, and C, and I need your help doing it. You have to check in every single day. Shotrim. People that go ahead and just have judgments without having a system in place to go ahead and allow their judgments to be enforced are fooling themselves and thinking that they're going to accomplish the things they set out to accomplish. How many of us are guilty of saying, hey, I'm so inspired, I want to achieve X, Y, and Z, and the next morning, what happens? Maybe I'll do it next week, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe next month, or maybe after the holiday. We keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. You know what happens? FS. Nothing happens. We all need to have shotrim in our lives. This is why the whole idea of defunding the police is absolutely absurd. Not to have police is absurd. You can't have a system of justice in the world without having a system to enforce it. This is true in a political environment, and it's also true in your personal sphere of your own lives. Now, I'm not sure what's happening here. I see my computer's freezing up. Okay, fine, we're back. So let's go. Let's talk about this in a way that's a little bit more meaningful. Okay, the pasuk continues and says, "Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice, you shall pursue." And I know exactly what you're thinking, because you're thinking what I'm thinking. Like, why use the same word twice? Why repeat the word tzedek, tzedek twice? Why tzedek, tzedek, tirdof? So I shared this idea earlier in the week. I love this idea. This has been my mantra for the week. So tzedek, tzedek, tirdof goes like this. Justice often is misunderstood as revenge. I want revenge. I want there to be justice for George Floyd. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go out and burn down Fifth Avenue. And the ends are justified by the means, because this is how we get justice. This is how we're going to teach the system how to bring justice to the world. The pasuk reads, Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. What does that mean? Tzedek, bitzedek, tirdof. You want to find justice? Make sure it's bitzedek. Make sure it's with righteousness. Don't go ahead and use your desire for justice to go ahead and get in the way of living a life that is just. Don't allow the means to justify the ends. You want justice, make sure it's bitzedek, it's with justice. The same idea, I think, could be explained in this way. It says the word tzedek also means righteousness. You want tzedek, you got to be with tzidkut. You got to do it with righteousness. You want to go ahead and find justice in the world? How are you being a righteous individual that is going to ensure that the justice is preserved? All too often, too many people will justify all kinds of behavior for the realm of justice, okay? And we can't live in a world like that. We can't live in a reality where we just do whatever we want because we want justice. No, you want justice? Tirdof. You have to pursue it. You have to be willing, ready, able, capable of getting yourself into a place where you're able to, sorry about that, where you want to get yourself into a place where you're able to preserve the justice and not pervert the justice. This is why there's so many references in the Torah: justice, justice, tishbo, justice, justice, tirdof. The idea is that whenever you're looking for justice, just be very careful that you have a proper system to make sure that you are balanced. It's interesting that the word for justice is tzedek. Not an accident, the word for tzedakah comes from the word justice. What's the correlation between tzedakah and tzedek? It's simple. Tzedek and tzedakah means doing the minimum that you need to do, the letter of the law. What's the difference between chesed and tzedek? What does chesed mean? Chesed means going above and beyond your responsibility. Whereas tzedakah or tzedek means doing exactly what you're meant to be doing. What kind of a life do you want to live? A life of tzidkut, a life of righteousness. What does it mean to be righteous? To be righteous means knowing when to live a life of tzidkut, a life of tzedakah, a life of doing something by the letter of the law, and when to go beyond the letter of the law, which is chesed, chasidut. Go above and beyond. That's what the Pasha is telling us. Pasha has 42 different commandments in there, most of which are not relevant to us unless we had a government set up in the state of Israel, which was following Torah law, unless we had an army, unless we had a whole other slew of things that we don't have today to govern us in the land of Israel. But there's a couple of things two more ideas that I want to share with you before I have to run. I have to make it a little earlier today. I had to travel into Brooklyn to pick up my son and pick up my father-in-law. I got to go then to Long Island. I have to meet with a couple. It's going to be a busy pre-Shabbat day today. I'm proud to say that I was at 4 weddings in the span of 24 hours. That's a new record for me. Yeah. So, but I have another busy weekend ahead of me. Not 4, but God willing, a lot more in the next couple of weeks. All right. So the Torah tells us that if you are going to go to war, anyone who had built a house, who planted a vineyard, anyone who just got married is freed from going ahead and doesn't have to go to war. Okay, you have a battle, not a problem. You just built a house for yourself. You planted a vineyard, you don't have to go. And then at the end, the Torah says, but if someone's afraid, they don't have to go. So the question is, what do you mean? Like, just afraid, fear? Why would you allow someone who's afraid to get out of doing service in the army? And then the Chachamim tell us that we're afraid that this guy's jitters, his freaking out will make other people freak out and then just completely demoralize the whole entire army. And the Chachamim tell us that these other ideas of the kerem, planting a vineyard, building a house, getting married, are all excuses that we create. So when you see someone leaving, he has the ability to leave without being embarrassed. The Torah goes to the extra mile to create a system where we're not going to embarrass someone. Think about that for a minute. What do we do? How are we creating shotrim and shoftim for ourselves to ensure that we're not going to embarrass someone? Are we sensitive to other people's sensitivities? The Parsha is telling you, my friends, God created a system of laws that is sensitive. We say that embarrassing someone is tantamount to killing them. Why? When you embarrass someone, what happens? The blood in their face gets drained out. They get pale, they get all white. And when the person loses the blood from their face, the blood is drawn out of their face, they get pale, they're embarrassed. That's ki'ilu, like you killed them. It's like you drew their blood out, it's killing them. And therefore you have an obligation to do anything and everything in your power to avoid embarrassing anybody. It's the same idea, by the way, in battle. This week's Parsha tells us that if you have a war and you have an enemy, one is for the environment, don't do a scorched earth policy, don't burn everything down. Fruit trees, you got to leave, you got to care for the environment. And it also says this idea of creating a golden bridge of retreat. You're going to have an enemy that you're going to fight. Make sure they have an escape route. Don't create a scenario where they have to fight so hard where they're going to push you back. Always create a psychological advantage for them to leave. The same is true, my friends, with the people around us. Don't embarrass someone. Embarrassing them, they'll come back, they're going to revenge. All kinds of things happen. Embarrassing someone is tantamount to killing them. There was a man in synagogue, a long time ago, who was in the middle of prayers, and his son was on his iPhone, and the father looks at the son, "Put away your iPhone!" loud in front of the whole synagogue. The kid was so embarrassed. The kid got up and ran out of the synagogue. You want to go ahead and chastise someone. You want to give musar to someone. You got to do it in a way which is somewhat sensible. You want to give someone reproof, do it. But make sure you do it in a way where you give them the benefit of the doubt, where you do everything in your power to ensure that you are not going to embarrass them. Do it privately, not publicly. Do it with a soft voice. Tell them how much you care and love them first, and then give them your musar. Give them the reproof that you have. Okay. You have a king. You want to appoint yourself a king? The Torah says, well, if you go into the land, you want a king like everybody else, go ahead and do it. But the Torah is saying, we don't want you to have a king. And how do I know that? When God says, when the Jewish people come to Shmuel Hanavi later on in the book of prophets, where the Jewish people are finally in the land of Israel, and they say, we want a king. We want a king like the Umat HaOlam, like the nations of the world. And Shmuel is depressed. Why? We don't want to have a king. Having a king is not ideal. Having a king means having a new overlord. It means having someone else to go ahead and to respond to. The Torah makes it very clear the king has very little power. His own power is to enforce the laws of the Torah itself. But ideally, the Torah does not want a king. Who is our king? Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloch, Le'olam Va'ed. That is the king. Right? He is the king. He will be the king. He's the future king. He's the past king. He is the king that we want in our lives. Why? Why do we want that king? I'll tell you why. Number one, when you believe in a God, you believe that everything in your lives has meaning. You believe that everything that you have is perfectly in tune to help test you, to give you what you need to accomplish your unique mission. When you believe in a God, you understand that you have something to be grateful for, gratitude. Okay, when you don't have those things, my friends, those things begin to melt away. What is the parasha? If I could go ahead and give you like a synopsis of this week's parasha, if I could do a trailer, in 30 seconds of the whole entire parasha, the parasha is telling you, my friends, that we are biased. We are human beings with a yetzer hara, with an evil inclination that all too often gets in the way of us expressing the best parts of who we are. Do we want a king? No. Do we want a shoftim? Yeah, we need shoftim. We need the judge. We need shotrim? Yeah, we need shotrim. Why? Because we can't trust ourselves. I know it's a nice idea to think that we could live in a world where we could trust everybody, but that's not the case. There was a famous, in the 70s, 60s, there was a guy who invented the cash register. And they found that when you had a cash register that actually took into account all the money that was actually like a calculator that was calculating all the money coming in, the theft that was happening at a cash register was happening at 60 to 70%. But when we got the cash register and the cash register had a system of recording how much money was coming and going, theft in cash registers dropped by 90%. You need to create a system of shoftim and shotim in our lives, my friends, and be it a mentor, a rabbi, friend, a book, a logging, whatever you got to do, find the system, shoftim v'shotrim, titen lecha, make sure you have it for yourselves, and you'll see yourself living a life of bliss, of happiness, of hatzlacha, and parnasa, of briut, and osher, and all the brachot are there for you, my friends. But you have to be willing to be in a place where tzedek, tirdof, you want justice. You got to be righteously pursuing after that justice. And then all those blessings, my friends, will be yours. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom Mevarach, a Shabbat of happiness, a Shabbat of rest. We only have 3 weeks until Rosh Hashanah, 3 more Shabbatot after this one. So let's make each one count. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you all in Bezrat Hashem next week, guys. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you.
Likewise, Marie. Shabbat Shalom. Alana, Shabbat Shalom. Roman, Shabbat Shalom.